Hey everybody, Hoang here, and today we're going to be going over some deck lists in the EX3 format, all of which cost $75 or less. The intention of this video is to showcase some budget decks because at the current moment, we will not be getting a new set of Digimon until somewhere in February, I think February 24th-ish, around that time period. And so as a result, the meta right now is a little stagnant, and so rather than looking at this negatively, let's take this as an opportunity to try out some new decks and or get people into the game, right? So that way you're not overwhelming them with a lot of information, it's easy to get into, etc., right? So with that being said, this video we're going to be showing off deck lists for every single color. We're going to have the price, including the price with shipping and without shipping. And yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So this video is ideally for returning players that are looking to pick up a deck, players that are looking to pick up a new deck, or just new players in general. So without further ado, let's get started. Kicking us off, we have one of the most iconic Digimon in the entire franchise, WarGreymon. This deck list is based on the WarGreymon X variant that was released in BT9. It is EX3 legal, and the price of this deck is $47 or $62 with shipping based on TCG player. Yes, shipping does add quite a bit, but obviously you can try and pick up these cards in person to minimize that. You can try and optimize the cart, etc. But overall, base price wise, not looking at shipping, this deck list is only $47. And so the goal of this deck list is the fact that you are obviously going to want to get into your WarGreymon X, who packs a lot of inherent removal, and you have quite a bit of protection actually through the Greymon X. Greymon X antibody is giving you some immunity to a lot of different forms of removal, so that way you have this really big beat stick. Not only that, but the beat stick is accompanied by a lot of different forms of control elements, and so you can go out of your way and start Gaia forcing a bunch of your opponent's Digimons and whatnot. Features a bunch of the Agumons, all of which are either searchers giving you power, your abundance of Greymons, which are either giving you DP, giving you protection, or they're just cheaper and more efficient. And then you have your Metal Greymons, one of which is very powerful in the form of Metal Greymon X, and he gives you some additional DP as well as security attack +1. And you do have the Metal Greymon that does give you piercing, as well as he has his own wind attacking ability. So what you can actually do, interestingly enough, is if you have the Metal Greymon and you swing Metal Greymon with X antibody underneath, you can activate the Wind attacking, proc it, pop whatever you want, evolve into Metal Greymon X, and then you can resolve those additional security checks and whatnot. And that's pretty strong actually. And you can also vice versa do this with the Evo into WarGreymon X and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of breathing room that you can do in this deck, and of course there's a lot of different ratios that you can change based on your liking it, So for example, your budget allows you a little bit more wiggle room, great. Maybe you want to run, starter deck Greymon, maybe you want to run some BT1 tie, whatever it may be. But the purpose of this list is we're trying to cut costs as much as possible to make a functional list that minimizes the impact on your wallet, right? So this is the list that we came up with to try and accomplish that. So yeah. Following up on the WarGreymon list, we do have the Gallantmon deck based on Gallantmon X from BT9, featuring the new support cards from EX3. Unlike WarGreymon, this is a more control-heavy style of deck. You have a little bit less protection, a little bit less of that aggression, if you will. However, this deck does have a lot more control, especially at the level 5 and level 6 levels. So I know a lot of people are a fan of Season 3, especially Gallantmon and all of them, so this deck is a really fantastic pickup for that. The price is $59, $62 with shipping, and that's not too bad. What's really interesting about this deck is not only the control aspect of it, but also just how fun Takato is to play with. When you Digivolve into your Gallant, your Growlmon, etc., you gain Blitz. That means you can Digivolve, and even though you pass turn, you're still able to attack and resolve a lot of your wind attacking abilities off your Gallantmon, off of your Omnimon X, etc. Like, there's just a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with this style of deck. I think that one of the coolest things is also the fact that you do have the Warp Digivolve from the starter deck Gallantmon. Being able to Warp Digivolve into your Gallantmons is very akin, not exactly close, but it's kind of up there with the Biomerge, if you will. With Gallantmon going into Gallantmon, it's a Warp Digivolve, right? And then in BT12, you do get the actual bio merge. And so I think one of the coolest things though is with the WarGreymon deck, with the Gallantmon deck, both of them are very easily upgradable in the future going forward. They received a support, very direct support in BT12. So even if you pick these up now, it's a great investment, and because you know, they're guaranteed support. Yeah. Now going into blue, we do have what I like to call Fish. This is a deck focusing on the Plesiomon plus the Aegisdramon combo. This deck is a total of $21 and $27 with shipping. And if you do have the budget, because I know this one costs a lot less than the normal deck, you can replace the TK with Davis Montomia from 1.5. So the purpose of this deck is that you're looking to just do a lot of board expansion and a lot of combo play. Cards like Plesiomon, cards like the Mega Seadra, King Wei, Aegisdramon, etc. They're all Digimon that spit out bodies from underneath, so you can expand your board pretty far. You know, upwards of anywhere from 2 to 3 additional bodies on a single turn. And not only that, but on your opponent's turn with Aegisdramon and Plesiomon, you potentially interrupt their entire line of play if they decide to hard play some stuff. So there's some really cool plays that you can do with this deck. I think my favorite part of this deck is definitely being able to play Aegisdramon. Aegisdramon is one of those Digimon that doesn't appear in a lot of forms of media. I believe he made his first debut in Lost Evolution, actually. That was the first video game that he made his appearance, and then ever since then he hasn't been in a lot of media. So seeing him in the Digimon TCG is actually super cool. And then you can cheat out stuff like the Waymon, who has his own on play that will cheat on another body. You have the Bidramon and Crabmon that give you buffs and respectively. Piranhamon has Rush, so you can immediately attack with it, and so on and so forth. Now, this list is courtesy of Dan Vang, who has provided us with a Imperial Ultramon list, and I think this Imperial Ultramon list is actually very, very close to what full power Imperial Ultramon more or less is, which is, you know, saying a lot, given the fact that this is still a very strong deck in the grand scheme of things. But this is $70, $78 with shipping. So, you know, baseline wise, we're still breaking under that $75 threshold. And yeah, so this entire deck is focusing on the DNA Digivolution or Joggers mechanic, where you're using your XVmon, Stingmon to go into your Pyildramon and just have a lot of aggression. You swing XVmon, Hard Slime, Stingmon, Jogress into Pyildra, double swing, go into Imperial Dramon, spit out 2 bodies, and rinse and repeat on the following turn. You can go into fighter mode, do some bouncing shenanigans. You have a lot of option coverage, right? Hammer Spark gives you a lot more memory to play with, Ice Wall can lock your opponent out, Mega Death is great removal, and of course Hidden Potential Discovered just allowing you to cheat into some really crazy stuff. If this is a little bit expensive, feel free to subtract one of the Davises and add an additional Davis Kent. That's totally fine. That'll save you about $5 to $7 depending, and then yeah, that should help some people. But yeah, so this deck, very, very strong. This is definitely a blue deck that can realistically do a fair amount of competing, actually, even in the current format of things. So if you're looking for a little bit of the pricier budget deck that is, you know, competitive ready, this is definitely the deck I would say is a pretty good pickup. Now we have one of my personal favorites, Lord Nightmon. Lord Nightmon is one of those Digimon that I am personally very fond of. I played a lot of Lord Nightmon during BT5. I try to make it work for whatever reason in BT8 as well as EX2. And it was just a lot of fun for me. And I think one of the coolest tools that we did get actually was Venusmon. So what you could do is you swing Lord Nightmon and then call out Nightmon because of your effect, and then evolve Nightmon into Venusmon, which then fundamentally shuts down a lot of decks in the format. So this entire deck is basically just trying to turbo into those really strong combos. Some of the new tools that we did get for Lord Nightmon is the Renamon line from EX2. Renamon's, you know, on playability, we don't really care about that, but the ESS, however, is really strong. When you play an option with 2 cost or higher, you do gain a memory. So your yellow memory boosts actually become 2 costs, right? Your removal, your Lonke becomes 7 cost, and so on and so forth. It's just very efficient. One thing that you could do is you can actually swap out the Anjouwomon and play BT10 Talmon and then upgrade your green plugin into 4. So that way on turn 2, what you can do is bring out your level 4 from Raising, go on the board, evolve into Talmon, play green plug for free, and evolve into Lord Nightmon almost effortlessly. And that's such an insane combo because that means you're getting out your level 6 on turn 2. Of course, you can go with the Angelwomon approach, which is a much more balanced and consistent approach, so there's a lot of breathing room you have. You can also run cards like the EX2 Sakuyamon, which does give you the restand, so that way you can restand Lord Nightmon, whose ability is not once per turn, and you can swing again and call out another body. This deck list is $44, $48 with shipping, so if you're looking for a very tempo-heavy yellow deck, this is one of my personal favorites. And speaking of EX2 and Sakuyamon and all that, we do have the Sakuyamon deck. I know this is another fan favorite Digimon for a lot of people out there, especially if you're trying to get into this game. So how this deck works is, so you're using these plugins, right? And the plugins, if you remember from the TV show, they're based on all of the cards and they're buffing up the Digimon. And Rika is, of course, the Digimon queen, going out there, and she was winning all those tournaments. And so her playstyle revolves around these plugins. And so the purpose of this deck is that you're using these plugins to try and generate a lot of value. You draw a lot of cards actually in this deck, but you do need to see a fair amount of your plugins. So your Renamons, they're not only grabbing you pieces, but they also have really strong ESSs. Pillowmon is just a filler to be there to stave off decks such as Justimon and whatnot. Your Kyubimons give you more consistency, and then of course Kazemon is there for the hybrid lethal. Both Talmons are fantastic. The EX2 Talmon plays a Rika for free, whereas the BT10 Talmon, like we mentioned before, it plays a free plugin. And then you have your Sakuyamons. EX2 Sakuyamon grabs back a plugin as well as restand something. So if you swing and then Evo into Sakuya, you get a restand. So the combo is you have Talmon, you swing Talmon, you proc Rika. Rika's ability allows you to tap her, and then you can play a plugin for free. So if you play the green plugin, then you can evolve into Sakuya on it and then restand that Digimon. And then you can swing again, so it's 2 swings for cost of 0 actually, which is very strong. Maid mode allows you to evolve over the Sakuyamon grab, and you can use one of your plugs for free. And maid mode's actually very versatile, so you can use options such as Blast Fire and a bunch of other different options. So there's a lot of room that you have to explore with this deck. It is $35, $42 with shipping, but of course, if you want to explore more options, like I said, Blast Fire, Sunrise Buster, etc., there's a lot of room and customization you can do with this. And of course, you have Merciful mode. Merciful mode is pops 1 Digimon for every mega you have underneath, and so you have the maid mode on top of the Sakuyamon that's actually pop 2. So that's a really fancy combo, and then you can basically go back into the maid mode from the Merciful mode, and then you can go into another maid mode and rinse and repeat. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. Now getting into green. Green is notoriously one of the cheaper colors in the Digimon card game. Why? I'm not sure, but it is, and that's pretty cool. So this deck is bloomlord, and bloomlord is one of the best decks in the current EX3 format. It is arguably the second best deck in the format, and it has the results to technically, in isolated EX3 format, it has the results to back up being the best deck in the format. Of course, we know it's Melga, but it's up there. It's very up there. And so this bloomlord deck, the entire gist of it is you're looking to expand your board, generate a lot of tempo, and you have a lot of control elements using cards like the Hydramon, the Grande Soul, and new EX3 Pomumon, right? If you have a little bit more budget on you, you can swap out the Rulies for the Mimis from BT1, because that'll give you a lot more gas in the tank. There's a lot more room to play with, but yeah, this deck overall is super fun. It's super fast and super aggressive, but it can also be very control-oriented if you want to go down that route. If you're looking for a competitive green deck, this is definitely the one to pick up. And making its return from the past, we do have Christmas Hybrid. Christmas Hybrid was something that was popularized back in the BT7 format. And the entire gist of Christmas Hybrid is abusing Atomic Inferno. Atomic Inferno is a 1-cost option that gives your hybrids +1 security attack. So using this, you can actually generate a lot of additional aggression because with the hybrids playstyle, what you can do is, you're digivolving over your green tamers, so you don't necessarily need to digivolve over your level 3 greens. So instead, we can dedicate that to having red Digimon in order to proc the Atomic Inferno. So we're using the Guilmon engine because with Digimon, that's an additional draw 1, so just a little bit more consistency. Guilmon X gives us a pop, and that can digivolve over Guilmon, and Guilmon also pops something. So yeah, a lot of really cool stuff there, and being that the fact that you have the red engine, that also means that you are able to play some red options: Crimson Flare, Gaia Force, Atomic Blaster, whatever it may be. You just have a lot of breathing room. And then using your hybrids, you can turbo into your top end. Rhino Kabuterimon is able to evolve into the Ancient Kabuterimon, or the Ancient Beetlemon, or the Shivamon. And Mega Gargomon is there just for a little bit of flavor, but if you want, you can just change that into an Ancient Beetlemon, an Ancient Troyamon, or some other form of green top end. This deck is currently $28 base, $37 with shipping, and if you have the budget, I would say swap the Ken out for Mimi just to generate a little bit more aggression, although Ken is very perfectly fine in this deck just because you have the ability to tap your opponent's Digimon and then swing into them. So, and if you want, you can swap up the Samadhis for a Thunder Laser just to have a little bit more consistent tapping potential. Now, going into black. Black is also a very notoriously cheap color in the Digimon card game. This D-Brigade list is credits to one of my friends. He goes by Jaxus Online. D-Brigade is a very heavy aggro style of deck that received a lot of new support in the EX3, an entire new evolution line actually. This deck is $38 baseline, $51 with shipping. I know, ouch. But the entire purpose of this deck is that you're throwing out these Commandromons, right? You're throwing out the troops, and it's a lot of aggression because when you kill one, another pops out. And using the new Tankdramon, you can actually spit out additional Commandromons, and then with Sealsdramon, it gives them the immediate rush, so they can attack just right off the bat. And then using the cards like the Darkdramon, you can generate additional aggression, especially on the top end. And because D-Brigade is such a small it's a relatively small engine. And what I mean by that is you don't have to dedicate a lot of your slots to playing actual ratios because most of your slots are dedicated to rookies. And so as a result, you have a lot of room to play option cards. So we have room to play cards like the Ultimate Flare, the Iron Fisted Onslaught. That way you can actually use this as a security bomb against your opponent to try and blow them out of the water. This was one of my philosophies back in earlier Digimon days with Rookie Rush, whereas when your opponent tries to match your aggression, or that they hit their security to match you, they increase the odds that they run into something like these powerful options to just blow them out. And then of course, because these are actually machine Digimon, Kazu is able to discard them to generate additional draw power, or you can also use them to generate additional memory and such. So this is a very cheap deck, it's a very good deck, and it's very aggressive. Now, one of my personal favorite decks is Justimon. Justimon is, of course, another fan favorite from Season 3, as well as just in general. It's a really cool Digimon, very Kamen Rider-esque. This Justimon list does not run a lot of the support we did receive in EX2, because I think a lot of the more generic toolbox style of black cards are more efficient. This deck does cost $51, $55 with shipping. So it's definitely not too bad, and it does receive further support in BT11. The entire purpose of this deck is to generate a lot of value and aggression off of the Justimon combo. Justimon is actually able to set up a 5 damage combo very easily. The combo is you have Gogmamon with Tsunoriza underneath, and you have 2 other sources. If you use Gogmamon to go ahead and burst away 2 of your sources, Gogmamon will hit 11k. If you then swing Gogmamon, tap Hero Amanakawa, you do hit 13k. At 13k, that does proc the Tsunorizamon, which means you swing for 2 damage, so you swing for 2, and then you evolve into Justimon. Justimon, using his Wind Digivolving ability, will restand. And then Justimon keeps the 2k from the hero, so then Justimon can swing again for an additional 2 damage, and then you can restand 1 more time, and then Justimon can swing for a game. You can also evolve into Critical Arm to try and streamline that process. If you have the final Zubagon Punch, you can actually just set up an OTK off the bat. With Gogmamon from Raising, plus 3 memory, plus memory boost, and a Zubagon Punch, so 5 memory fundamentally, you can actually do a very safe OTK. If you want to be a little bit more safer, you could also run a delicate plan to guarantee that your security checks go off without a hitch, and you swing for quite a bit of DP. On average, you're swinging for 13k. You can hit up to like 15k, 70k if you really need to, and then the rest of your deck is just streamlining, getting into that Justimon as fast as possible. So if you're looking for this like One Punch Man style of deck, Justimon is definitely a really great style of deck to pick up for. And now, what is notoriously the most expensive color in the Digimon card game? Purple. And so once again, also making a return from the past, we do have yellow-based Cherubimon. Credits to one of my mods, who is notoriously known for Rihi coping. Yellow-based Cherubimon, and why this is, one of the more interesting ways, as well as one of the better ways to play Cherubimon than pure purple, is because, again, the hybrid engine, you're not evolving over your rookies, you're evolving over your tamers. So as a result, you can play different colors of bases for the Cherubimon style of deck. So with yellow, yellow has one of the highest value rookies that you can at the moment summon, right? Your Bushiagumons have rush, so they can immediately attack. Salamon give you healing, and then so on and so forth. So what you can do is evo into Rihimon once you've established a fair amount of your trash. Rihimon for 1, evolve into Cherubimon, Cherubimon pop, summon a tamer, and then if your Cherubimon dies or you pop your own Cherubimon, then you're summoning out like 5 additional bodies, and you're just going crazy from there. This deck is $40 with $48 with shipping. This is very much so a controlled tempo style of deck, but you can surprisingly play it pretty aggro because of Rihimon. Rihimon will recycle back your tamer, so you can do some really cool plays. It's a very I wouldn't say beginner friendly. It's not like super hard, but it's definitely not the easiest deck to play, I would say. And of course, because of the hybrid deck, there are a lot of other colors that you could hypothetically experiment with, right? You can experiment with red base if you wanted to play Atomic Inferno and match what the Christmas hybrid was doing. So yeah, a lot of breathing room. And the last deck that we are going to cover is Ofanimon Fall Down Mode. Credits to Ying, one of my very good friends in the Digimon community. The entire purpose of this deck is using Gautomon to go into Angels and such for very cheap, and then going into this toolbox style of top end, right? And by doing so, you have a lot of flexibility in your plays, and you're just generating a lot of advantage alongside all these powerful options, right? Flame Hell Scythe allows you to remove bodies from board while summoning really powerful cards like the main Crackmon, the Angelwoodmon, and then you can go into an Ofanimon from there. You can go into Venusmon and just lock your opponent down. And there's a whole ton of plays that you can do. The red engine using the Taikari allows you to use Crimson Blaze, which is one of the strongest options in the format, shutting down bloomlord almost entirely. And Chaos Degradation is such a powerful option that it just completely seals some decks just entirely. Using cards like Creepymon, you're able to force your opponent to mill out. Cards like Junomon and Avenge Kid are very good at keeping yourself from decking out, especially once you get to those later stages of the game where you're almost at deck out. And like I said, Venusmon is very effective at shutting down your opponent, stops cards like the WarGreymon X from going ahead and getting off that restand and bounce. So yeah, really good stuff here. This deck is $52 with $58 with shipping. Of course, there are some changes that you could make to this deck if you have a little bit more budget. For example, you can swap out the Karis for some TKs, you can play a few more Gazimon, etc. But yeah, there's just a lot of things that you can do. This is definitely not a beginner friendly deck. This is something that will take a bit of practice to really get the hang of. So if you do decide to pick up this deck because you want a little bit more of a challenge when trying to play Digimon, I would definitely say the first 2 games don't work out for you. It's okay. Just keep practicing, and eventually you will get the hang of this complex deck. Also, Ying's the one that made it, so inherently it's just more complex than most Digimon decks because he just loves his 1-ofs. Like, do you guys see how many 1-ofs are in this deck? May Crackmon, Angelwoodmon, Creepymon, Junomon, Avenge Kidmon, Calling, Reinforce, Purple Memory Boost. Like, it really just goes on. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video was able to give you guys a bit of an idea of some really cheap and fun decks that you could pick up, as well as help some new players trying to get into the game. So thank you so much for watching, and take it easy.